Hello and welcome to another Beer and Code. Thank you so much for tuning in. You know I appreciate it. Today I'm talking once again about JDapper, and we'll get into that in a second. But I want to make sure to talk about the beer I'm drinking, and this one is kind of a surprise to me here. This one is called Big Eddie Russian Imperial Stout, and what you wouldn't know by just looking at it is it's actually a beer by Jacob Leinenkugels, which is actually sort of a more well-known brewery, not for their big, heavy 9.5% alcohol stouts, but for their much lighter, like the Honey Weiss and things like that. But this is a big surprise, and you should be able to find it in a lot more places than some of my previous beers, and I highly recommend it. It is very, very, very good. Mm. The perfect beer to keep me warm in this freezing cold weather. Alright, back to JDapper. So, as I've said before, if you haven't seen my intro to JDapper video, I highly recommend you check it out in a link that I post here or here. I'll figure it out eventually. So yes, you should go check out the JDapper video that I produced first to get you kind of caught up with what we're doing here. Before we get started, though, I wanted to thank YouTuber. I won't say his name in case he doesn't want to be in my video, but there was a YouTuber here who commented asking about inserts and updates, and I said, that's a great idea. So I have finally gotten around to doing that. So today we'll be implementing inserts for JDapper. So if you recall in the past, we just took raw SQL that someone typed out and turned it into Java objects. Now we're going to be going in the opposite direction. We're going to take Java objects that you have and serializing them into insert statements. So let's see how that's done. Alright, you can see here I've typed out some base stuff. Here's our query method that we had before. We won't be looking at that at all. Instead, we're going to be filling out this insert method that asks for a table name as well as some object. That's just going to be our data that we're going to insert. And all we're going to do is we are going to build up this raw insert statement with values. So it starts out as a shell, insert into, this will be table name, this will be column names, and this will be our values. So we're just going to do a bit of reflection and work with some parameterized queries and things like that to turn our data into this SQL statement. So let's get started. So first things first, like before, we needed to know the type of the data. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the type from our data. Class of question mark type equals data dot get class. All right. Now that we have the type, we're going to be looping through their fields a lot. So let's grab them and save them for later. Field array. I can't type today. F-I-E-L-D-S equals type dot get fields. So now that we have the fields of our class, we're going to need to turn them into a list of column names and a list of values. So we'll need to start with an empty list of each, and we're going to just use a string to collect those values. Wow, typing is hard. Start with an empty list of columns and an empty list of values. And now we'll loop through the fields. And for each field, we're basically just going to concatenate the name of the field onto the end of our string. So we'll end up with a list of columns. So concatenation plus equals, and we're going to add a comma for each one, and we're going to add the name of the field. Field dot, oops, get name. And now for the values, since we just need a question mark per column, we're just going to do a question mark. So values plus equals question mark. Now we'll have one question mark per column and one column name per column. So now if you look here, we have the leading comma on each. We're just going to strip those with substring. Starting at 1. And we're going to do the same thing with the values. Alright, so now we have our column names and our values. Okay, so now the next step is to turn our raw insert statement into some actual SQL by adding in the table name where it needs to go, these column names, and these value question marks where they need to go. So, let's see here, string SQL equals, we're going to use string.format. That's what these percent signs mean. They're kind of what string.format uses. So the format is going to be our raw insert, paste that in. And now our arguments are going to first be table name, right here. That gets passed in. And then we're going to need to pass in our columns and then our values. So column names and values. So now we have our SQL that we're going to execute. However, it still just has a bunch of question marks in it. So we're going to have to deal with that like we did in one of the previous videos. To do that, we're going to use prepared statement. Dot prepare statement. They make it pretty easy to write this stuff. And then eventually we're going to call statement dot execute. So now we just need to fill in those question marks with some data. And to do that, we're going to loop through our fields again. We're going to do it the old school way because we'll need this this index here. And we're going to simply call onto that statement like I've done before, set object, and we're going to pass in the index, which in this case is I+1 because the parameters index start at 1, whereas our fields array starts at 0. So then we're going to call fields at I, and now we're going to call and use reflection to get the value out of our data object. So now we are essentially filling in those question marks with data from the object that was passed into us. So that's it. That's the code. Let's just step into some examples now. So I want to show you on MySQL a table I've created for test purposes. It may be difficult for you to see, but there is a column called string1, number1, and another string. Let me just show you. I'm going to execute that query a couple times to show you that there's nothing there. But there is a column called string1, number1, and another string. So now we're going to hop back into here, and I have a class called stuff, which has a column called string1, number1, and another string. And we're going to use that to show you how we can insert data using this stuff object. Let's go to a main class here, and let's create a stuff. Stuff s equals new stuff. Now let's put some data into it. S dot string1 is equal to hi YouTube, and s dot number1 is equal to my favorite number, and we're just going to leave the other one null now, just to show you how that sort of handles it. And now we're going to call JDapper dot insert. Table name in this case is, as I showed you before, it's stuff. Let me verify that. Yep, it's right there. It's stuff. And so table name is stuff, and our data is s. That's all right. So I'm going to run this code right now. And it didn't blow up. I promise you I didn't really edit this much. I got lucky. Okay, we're going to hop into MySQL again. And now we're going to execute the same statement. And you will see that the data got put in there. Hi YouTube, number 42, and another string was null because we never set it. So I hope you guys learned a little bit about reflection once again, and about inserts, and about Java in general. I had a lot of fun doing this one in particular. I think doing this kind of stuff with SQL is really cool. It can allow you just to kind of get a better feel for how databases work and how other sort of big libraries like the Hibernate and whatnot work. So I think it's a lot of fun to do stuff like that. So thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, if you have any suggestions for things to implement in JDapper, please comment below. If you enjoyed this and learned a lot, please like and or subscribe. I really appreciate it. I guess I just want to say thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. I have a really good time making these, but it makes it a lot more fun when people are actually watching them. Also, I want to say once again, this Big Eddie Big Eddie Russian Imperial Stout by Leinenkugels is fantastic. They don't pay me to say that, I promise. Um, but it is delicious. Cheers, and thanks again for watching.